Have you heard the statistic that for every heart that stops beating, there are 6 hearts that are broken? But the truth is that bereavement is much farther reaching than that. The reality is that the number of bereaved children in this country grows by leaps and bounds all the time. According to the most recent childhood bereavement estimation model by the JAG Institute, 1 in 14 children in the United States will experience the death of a parent or sibling by their 18th birthday. But in Kentucky, it is 1 in 10 children. Let me repeat that. 1 in 10 children in this state will experience the death of a parent or sibling by the time they graduate from high school. A loss of this magnitude impacts all aspects of a child's life.
I was 11 years old when he passed away.
I was 2.5 when he passed away.
I was 9 years old when he passed away.
I was 12 years old whenever he passed away.
I was 6 years old whenever he passed away.
We all remember our father. He was the minister of music. He played the piano, he played the organ, and he was always in the studio recording music, recording songs with our mom. He was very involved in our lives, and he was a very fun person to be around.
Like, I don't know, I just felt like a big hole had been taken, like, in my life.
It's impossible for a child to experience any kind of loss that they're grieving about and not bring that into the school setting. It's impossible because they're in school 5 days a week. And children grieve in different ways. There are some students that they may not go through all the cycles, all the stages of grief in a perfect order like, textbooks say that you're supposed to. Some of them are more isolated. They don't want to talk about it. Some, they want to talk about it every day. So I just think that they grieve differently, and it's definitely impactful for their life.
These children spend a great deal of their lives in the school setting. However, in a study by the American Federation of Teachers and the New York Life Foundation, it was found that only 7% of teachers have ever received bereavement training. This creates a barrier within our schools to help teachers deal with the children they have in their classroom for hours every single day. Our children spend more than half of their days in the school setting. Educators are quite literally on the front lines of a child's grief, whether they realize it or not. How a school staff responds to a grieving child can make a large impact. By simply acknowledging to the child that a loss has occurred, you say to the child, "I'm here if you need me. I care." Because saying nothing can actually say a great deal to a child.
It was still nice to know that the teachers did care. So I could go to school knowing that they were going to ask me in front of everyone, but it was still nice to know that they still cared about what was going on at home, and so that was really nice. I forgot what his name was whenever I was in 5th grade, and he was very nice to cut us some slack. He told my mom, because we had to go to Memphis for a couple of days, and he was just like, take all the time that you need, don't worry about the kids' homework or anything like that, like it's fine. And I felt like he was very understanding because he as well, like he was able to understand because I believe he also had a death in his family.
As a society, when we find discomfort in things, we avoid them, and grief makes people uncomfortable. Teachers are no exception.
My experience with grieving children is that I was a social worker with hospice for several years. I've also been the grief counselor with hospice, and I'm also currently a mental health therapist. I work every year with the Camp Robin, which is a grief camp for kids, and I'm the leader of the teenage group. I think one of the biggest barriers to kids getting identified as needing help or just getting support for their grief is a lot of people just in the general community, I think, are kind of uncomfortable with talking about grief. And that's something I feel like education could help, and us all to remember that we're models to children about how to grieve and express our feelings, and that it should be okay to say how we feel and have a comfortable environment to do that. But when adults are uncomfortable talking about it, then children learn you're supposed to be uncomfortable talking about that.
By gaining comfort in talking and walking with a child on a grief journey, it better allows you to recognize when a child is struggling.
I think just that acknowledgement and noticing things about the child and changes in their behavior is so important, because I think all of us need to remember we might be the only person in that child's life asking them, how are you feeling? You know, what's going on? Or I've noticed this. Again, there's natural phases of the grief process, but as you see children maybe having more trouble getting through those phases of grief in a way that's, they're doing it in a way that's harmful rather than helpful. And I think for kids it's important to have an adult that they feel comfortable with asking those questions, and for us as adults to be comfortable with hearing the questions. A child is emotionally, and if they're having any thoughts to hurt themselves, and being able to ask that question. Because I think a lot of people are uncomfortable with that, and we need to make that something that we can ask when we have a concern. Ask the question. Asking someone if they're having suicidal thoughts does not make someone suicidal. Actually, that's the key thing that can be the turning point in getting someone help. Maybe if the depression is lasting a long time and starting to really impair functioning like schoolwork or relationships with others, or if that person has had a major change in the way they interact with others and their personality seems a lot different, being sure that you take the time to stop and talk to them about that and ask them and tell them you've noticed, because I think a lot of times, especially teenagers, think no one notices.
Most grieving people, children included, want their loved one to be remembered. If you remember them, they want to know that.
I think another thing I hear a lot of my clients say is, I wish someone would bring up their name. I wish people would talk about them, my loved one. It's like people are afraid to mention that person, and talking about that person and telling good memories and then hearing good memories from other people, I think is part of the healing process and can be such a comfort to that person that's grieving.
Like, he did leave a legacy, and his music and his family just brings me comfort.
I'm going to college to be a music therapist. I'll be playing the violin, the flute, and I'll be singing as well. So I think that he'd be very proud of me going forth, and I guess his music legacy, I guess.
I feel like I'm a great student at school. I feel like he'd be proud of me for that, and I feel like I'm a good brother, so I feel like he'd be proud of me for that also, and being a little responsible but sometimes immature. But then I feel like he'd be very proud of me for all that I've accomplished.
You know, it is really hard, especially whenever I'm sad, to think, to like actually feel comfort from our dad, because whenever I'm sad about anything, it just goes right back to, oh, he's not here. Like, whether it's something like, oh, I didn't score well on a test, or a relationship isn't working out, it kind of just always just goes right back to that. So the immediate response isn't, oh, well, I feel comfort because he's watching over me. But in the end, I know that he is, and so that's always really comforting.
These kids, they walk a difficult path as they figure out life without such a significant person and continue to feel that impact throughout their future. The initial acknowledgement to the child that the loss has occurred creates an immediate support. Remember, you will never be seen as a support to a grieving child until you acknowledge the loss to the child. By providing this acknowledgement, you open the door for understanding and support, and this can have a powerful effect on a child's grief journey. No one expects you to be a hero. The kids are the heroes. But you can have an enormous impact and create a loving, supportive environment for these kids to come to day in and day out.
I think it's important for teachers and anyone that works in a school to understand that when a child comes back to school after the death of a parent or someone close to them, that just acknowledging that says a lot. I know we're often uncomfortable to talk about it, don't want to make the student upset, don't want you know, just maybe they're coming to school to forget about it, but it's so important that children have someone, and it doesn't even have to be a teacher. It could be someone that works in the cafeteria, a bus driver, a custodian, just someone that they have a relationship with to talk to. And I think we need to get out of the mindset that, oh, I don't want to talk about it because I'm afraid I'll upset them. But it's, you know, I'm just acknowledging, hey, I know you're having a rough time right now. Just let me know if there's anything I can do. So a teacher doesn't have to be a school counselor or have some kind of degree above their door in order to just talk to a kid, because oftentimes they just want someone to listen.